Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be another battle of the palette, and today's edition is going to be all the berry tone palettes in my collection. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. If you're into eyeshadow palettes, Essence and Catrice, and getting the use out of your makeup the way that I am, then definitely stay tuned because I think you're going to get something out of this video. I started a series already in 2022 and I'm carrying it on into 2023 with these palettes that I like to compare. I have them battle it out in 12 different rounds. And I like selecting these based on their color stories, just to see what are the differences in the color stories and then which one stands out. And actually the outcomes of today surprised me, because if you were to ask me bang on the money, which one of these is your favorite, I wouldn't pick the outcome that we're getting to today. So I've got 4 berry tone palettes here for you today that we're going to compare and contrast according to 12 different metrics. I hope you're here for it. And in case you're new here, it may be good to know that I live in the Netherlands, my name is Maaike, and I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, which greatly skews my makeup preferences. And because I have been buying, trying, and reviewing makeup for more than a decade, I also have some very strong opinions about makeup. So if you're here for that, then maybe you can click subscribe and join the Snow Angel Club. Which are the 4 palettes we're going to be featuring in today's video? We're going to talk about some OGs. In the red corner, we're going to be talking about the ABH Modern Renaissance. Who didn't own this at some point? I still have mine, but I definitely think that this is on its way out of my collection, which is why I wanted to do this comparison now, to also give me some information for my decluttering series that I will be filming and posting for you in March. Then in the green corner, we will be going over the Lime Crime Venus XL, and I have always called this the Modern Renaissance on steroids. And if I were to pick out of these 4, this is my favorite palette because it gives me the most options. It has the most shimmers, it has some really interesting vibrant shades here as well, it goes really deep, plus it doesn't have any neutral tones. In the yellow corner, we have the Juvia's Place The Berries palette. And this is a very small, curated little color story of 6 pans. I didn't buy this myself, actually. Someone gifted this to me who wanted to get rid of it. I think she had a double in her collection. And was like, would you like to try this? And I was like, yeah, I can try it. Not my kind of color story, but we'll see. And then finally, we have the Dose of Colors Blushing Berries in the blue corner, and this is a all matte 5 pan, and I've always used this in the same way that I use the ABH Modern Renaissance, which is for my berry smoky look, which I actually did a short on using the Modern Renaissance, so maybe I can link you to that in the description box down below. So if you want to see my go-to look with the ABH Modern Renaissance, you can see that. And this one fills a very similar gap, so that's why I'm sort of thinking, maybe if I just keep one of these, I might be happy. So that's why I wanted to go over and compare these particularly, these palettes in particular together, because I was I just need to figure this out. So let's just get started with round number 1, which is price point. Now it's going to be depending perhaps a little bit on where you live, what these palettes might cost you. Like I said at the start, I'm in the Netherlands, and so that's where I'm gonna go over when it comes to availability and all that. Plus I'm doing all of this in euros, because it makes more sense to me. So the ABH has gone down in price a lot, because this used to retail for close to 60 euros when I got it, but it's now more like 44, I rounded it up. So it's 44 now, which is a much better deal than when I bought it, because when these came here, they were they were more expensive than a naked palette. I remember that. And everybody in the US was like, ooh, ABH, ABH, ABH. And to me, it was just so expensive because in the US, these were $42, and over here, they were marked up a lot. I remember being very angry about that at the time, but yeah, that's the way it was. Then the Lime Crime in the green corner is 51. It's 50, 51, 52, 53. Depends on the website, but on Douglas, it's 51. And then the Juvia's Place one is actually the most affordable one. This is only $14, but it's currently on sale. So you can snatch this up for $9. So that's what, 14 euros? No, it's $15, 14 euros, but it's on sale for $9.80, I think. And then in the blue corner, the Dose of Colors is 39 euros. That's expensive for 5 shades. So yeah, because the Juvia's Place one is the cheapest, it wins the first round. So round number 1 goes to the Juvia's Place. Round number 2 is availability. And like I mentioned, I'm in the Netherlands. I can buy 3 out of 4 of these in my country from Douglas. They're all listed on the same website for once. And I think that both the ABH, the Lime Crime, and also the Dose of Colors are also available at Sephora. Is Lime Crime still at like a bigger retailer? I don't know. Like, so little has happened with Lime Crime in the past couple of years. I'm like, are they still around? Are they still a thing? But you can still buy the palette regularly available through Douglas. You don't have to go through the Lime Crime website, but that's another option. And I think they do, in fact, do like international shipping on the Lime Crime website. So if there's a Lime Crime palette you can find, then maybe try that route because that can usually work. So the Juvia's Place one is actually the hardest to get because that's only available through the Juvia's Place website to me. So previously, I don't know what happened, but Beauty Bay used to stock all these amazing brands and they've all disappeared. And Juvia's Place was one of them. So I actually got some of my earlier Juvia's Place palettes through Beauty Bay. And now that I can only buy them through their official website, I feel a little bit more hesitant to pick them up because the official website is in the US. I have to pay for custom fees, and that always makes things a little bit more expensive. So that's why I'm a little bit peeved about that. I know for a fact that you can buy Juvia's Place from Ulta if you're in the US. So you have more options in the US with this one, but for me it's the hardest to get. I think overall the ABH, because that's a brand that's everywhere, you can buy from most websites, most retailers, so that's why the red corner gets the point here. But then we get to the this is where things get interesting. So round 3 is how much product you get in the palette. So the ABH has 9.8 grams. I mean, this doesn't look like it's going to be less than 10 grams of product to me. I don't know about you, but to me this doesn't look like just under 10 grams of product, but that's how much you get in here. By comparison, the Lime Crime gives you a whopping 30 grams of product, and it's only 4 more shades. But 30 grams of product. The Juvia's Place takes the cake with 13.2 grams in just 6 pans, and then the Dose of Colors is actually 10 grams of product. But yeah, the Lime Crime one is here, the biggest one, with 30 grams of product, so you get the most product in there, and that's why that one wins. But green corner gets the point for now, but round 4 is how many pans we get. And the ABH is 14 pans, which makes it 0.7 grams of product. I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of people hitting pan on ABH shadows really, really quickly. And, or like using this palette up. Mine looks nice and used as well by now. But this isn't my favorite ABH palette, so I haven't used it a lot. Like, I wasn't in love with this the way everybody else was. But yeah, if you're only getting less than a gram, like 1.2 grams is a standard eyeshadow size. This is almost half of a standard eyeshadow size. And it's a very soft formula. No wonder everybody was hitting pan on this so easily. But yeah, rant over. So you don't get a lot of product in the ABH. The Lime Crime has 18 pans, but because we get so much, it's 1.67 grams per pan. So you get more than a standard eyeshadow size in the Lime Crime palette, which I think is good. And as I pointed out, the Juvia's Place one takes the cake because we get 13.2 grams in total over just 6 pans. So that's 2.2 grams. 2.2 grams of product in every single pan. And the Dose of Color comes close because in 5 pans, we get 10 grams of product, so that's 2 grams per pan. But the Juvia's Place, the yellow corner, wins here because we get a lot of product in every single pan. So if you want your eyeshadow to last and not be used up too quickly, then the Juvia's Place is your best bet. Packaging. Mine is still fairly clean. Compared to like how long I've had this and what other people's might look like. But this velvet packaging that ABH decided to do in this very light mauvey pink, no. just know it's not a good vibe, especially because you do get some darker things. And I once actually like laid this flat on my makeup table like this, and that's how it got that stain. And it's impossible to remove. You can't even do that. So because the velvet gets so grubby so quickly because of also the light shade, for a lot of people that's a pet peeve with this one. The Lime Crime I feel is just a little bit big for me. Like 18 pans is like on the cusp of what I think is right, but it's just a bit bulky and cumbersome. Like the Huda Beauty ones are also 18 pans, but they're smaller than this. So I think we could have gotten like less bulky packaging with this one, so I feel it's a bit too bulky. The Juvia's Place is really nice, easy to handle, lightweight cardboard, magnetic closure. It doesn't have a mirror, if that's your thing, but I don't always need a mirror, but I do like it as a perk. None of these have removable pans, sadly. And the Dose of Colors one is really pretty. I really like that. We've got a lot of sun today, so it's nice and shiny. We get a mirror, and then we have the 5 shades there. But this is just going to come down to just being a little bit petty. This is plastic, so it's not as sturdy. These can break a little bit more easily. And I actually like the shape of the Juvia's Place better for storage than this, because if you put it like this, it kind of disappears. So I always store these like this, but then they kind of fall everywhere. So I prefer the Juvia's Place ones because they're just a little bit easier to handle. So yellow gets the point in round 5, moving into round 6, which is the level of pigmentation. And I think that the ABH level of pigmentation is okay. At this point in time, I don't think that the ABH Modern Renaissance is all that special in terms of like what it does. It's buildable, it's nice, it's very easy to work with shadow, I think personally. But in terms of pigmentation, they're not the most pigmented shadows on the planet. Especially with some of the berry shades, like those can be a little bit gritty as well, and that's what makes the palette interesting to me. In the Lime Crime, they are very pigmented, but they can be a little bit patchy because of that pigmentation. So for the Lime Crime one, I feel that it's one of those formulas, it's again an older palette of course, where because of the way it's made and the kind of pigments we get in there, the shadows aren't perhaps as smooth as you'd like them to. So especially with the Lime Crime, I struggle because my lids kind of move around because I'm just, you know, I'm creeping towards 40, so my lids aren't perfectly smooth, and then when you blend things from like your crease towards your nose, I get these little like bunching up of my skin, and it doesn't go on smoothly in one go. I find that doesn't happen with certain other shades, and I feel that with the Lime Crime I get it more because the shadow kind of skips as you try to blend it. You can blend it out, you can make it work, but it does require some extra steps. The Yellow Corner Juvia's Place has incredibly great pigmentation in their shadows, but I find again, like with the Lime Crime, that we kind of therefore get less performing shadows. So it's very intense, really great pigmentation, but also with this Berries palette, I felt that they weren't as easy to blend as I'd like them to be. So again, like the differences here are very minute. But I think the most pigmented one that is also very easy to work with because the formula is very similar to the ABH is the Dose of Colors. They are smooth, buttery mattes that really glide on and you get instant pigmentation. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the smooth, easy to work with formula of the ABH, but you get it in a very pigmented version that the Lime Crime and the Juvia's Place have to offer. So point here needs to go to the blue corner. Round number 7 is textures and finishes, and now that I've looked at these palettes again, I'm like, they're mostly matte, so you don't really get a lot in terms of like textures and finishes either. I mean, the ABH is very matte heavy. There's only like 2 actual shimmers and a satin. Like in terms of like textures and finishes, I think of like, you know, the Natasha Denona or like the Huda Beauty or the Pat McGrath, where we're definitely getting something else now. And none of these really fit the bill. I think the Lime Crime still gives you the most variety because we get some different levels of shimmer in there as well as some sequin shades, but again, quite matte heavy as we'll see in a minute. In the Juvia's Place one, it's just mattes and shimmers and it's just that. It's really like finish wise, there isn't anything that's super duper exciting. And the Dose of Colors one, as I already said, there are no different textures because it's all matte. So here I feel the Lime Crime needs to get the point. Round number 8 then, and this is the matte to shimmer ratio. So let me tell you how many mattes and shimmers you actually get. I already mentioned for the ABH, we get 11 mattes in a 14 pan palette. There's only 2 shimmers. They're very similar because it's these two. It's the Primavera and the Vermeer shades, so these two here. And then we get one like satin shades in Antique Bronze. Just no. My shimmer-loving heart does not like that. In the Lime Crime, we do get 5 shimmers, but they're, like, again, softer-ish. Like, they're not like high shine metallic ones, but we do get something that looks like a bit more of a duochrome. Then these 3 are all shimmers. This is a shimmer as well. And then here we get those 2 sequin shades. So we've got a little bit more going on. This looks like it could be a satin as well. I haven't used this in a while. I definitely need to whip this out again. So I feel that here the matte to shimmer ratio is, you know, best represented. And then we have the Juvia's Place where we get the 4, like these are all matte, and then we just get the 2 shimmers that look pretty similar actually in the pan. And then this may come as a surprise. This is all matte, but they're really good mattes. And I've always felt about these little Dose of Colors palettes that if you give me an all matte palette, make it this. Like, it's so good that I feel that because the other palettes are also so matte heavy, that here it's not really about that ratio, but I'm gonna give the point to the Blue Corner because I'm like, if you're then, like, they really committed to the one thing they do really well, whereas the other palettes, I feel, like, then just give me a matte palette. You know what I mean? Am I making sense? I don't know. But that was my thinking when I gave the point. Round number 9 is the color story. So let me again whip these open for you. So the ABH is just, it's warm tone neutrals. Like, a lot of people love this part of the palette, but that's not the part of the palette I went for. So when I go for this palette, I go in with like the reds and the pink. Like, these 4 shades and these 2 shades are the only ones I really use, and then a little bit of Cypress Umber. But Cypress Umber is also in the Soft Glam. My plan with the ABH is actually, with a couple of my ABH palettes when I declutter in March, is to take out the shades I like and recreate like a custom Anastasia palette using like old packaging. So I hope I'll be able to salvage the packaging from one of them. And it's probably going to be this one, the Prism, and the Sultry. Those 3 I'm going to pull apart and keep 14 shades from and create another like ABH palette. And this is one of the ones that's gonna suffer from that. Because it's just, I really don't care about these 3 shades. Like, these 3, like, they all look the same on me. Like, whether I use burnt orange, raw sienna, or golden ochre, it's really not going to make a lot of difference. Really, and tempera, like, this entire bit here, like, for me, the palette is this. Like, this. That's pretty, but I don't need those 4 very light, warm shades. But that's what everybody went for. I've already mentioned that I really like the color story of the Lime Crime because this is, it doesn't have a single neutral. Maybe this, but it is a little bit more on the peachy side, perhaps for it to really truly be a neutral. Everything here is berry. And then we get these really nice, bright, almost neon kind of colors. It goes really light, really dark, and then you just have a really good selection of everything that's in between. You can pull this very cool toned if you go in with a shade like this. Maybe pull in a little bit of this and this. That's a very nice, neutral, soft, everyday look, but you can also glam it up and get a lot of versatility out of this as well. So in terms of what it has to offer, I can already tell you the point here is gonna go to the Lime Crime. Now, the Juvia's Place one is a really nice palette, but I keep this around for just this one shimmer in the corner. This shimmer is amazing on the lids, and I keep this as a companion palette to the mauves, because I also have the Juvia's Place, the mauves, and that's really light. So if I want to get a little bit more out of that, I like going in actually with this like deeper plum shade as a bit of liner, and maybe that to intensify some of the shimmer. But the other three I find are way too pink for my liking. So I'm just not fully engaged with this palette, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't buy this myself, because based on the swatches I saw, I knew I would only like that one shimmer, and that's the only reason why this is still hanging out in my collection. So again, should I just repress that and put it in a singles palette? Maybe, but for now I have a couple of these little Juvia's Place palettes. They don't take up a lot of room, so I actually also don't mind hanging on to this. So, but yeah, that's a decision for another day. But yeah, that's definitely not going to get the point. And here, I mean, it's all matte. And color story wise, really, it's just not that berry. For a palette called Blushing Berries, that's the only berry. Maybe this. This is orange, that's orange. They're like warm tone neutrals. So when I use this, I tend to use these two, and I use the black as liner, and then I layer it over a cream shadow I have, and that's how I create like a smoky berry look with this. But I tend to ignore those first two shades. Like, I may use that lighter shade for a bit of blending, but though I don't use them. So again, that's why this one is kind of on the chopping block as well. So yeah, color story wise, the lime crime, so the green corner gets the point. Round number 10 is going to be blendability. Now the ABH has a really lovely blendable formula, but because you get so little product and the formula is pretty powdery, it can therefore also be used up very easily. So that's why I felt like, yeah, it's blendable, but I already mentioned that I feel the Lime Crime has a really great level of pigmentation, but it kind of, like, you suffer in blendability there. It's just not that easy to work with. Same for the Juvia's Place. So for me, the dose of colors here really needs to get the point, because I feel formula-wise, it's just really bang on. It's the smoothest eyeshadow I've ever worked with, which is why these Dose of Colors 5 pans have lasted such a long time in my makeup collection, because they are really good eyeshadow palettes. It's just that I don't reach for them because the color stories aren't necessarily my vibe, if that makes sense. Then round 11, fallout. How much fallout do we get? The ABH, you can get a lot of fallout with it because it is so soft and powdery, and that can, especially upon application, lead to things falling down your cheeks, especially with the berry shades in the palette, because they are a little bit more gritty. They are a bit more difficult to pick up with a brush and not make a mess all over your cheeks. So especially with the ABH, I would recommend doing your eyes first and then the rest of your makeup. For sure, the Lime Crime does have a fair bit of fallout as well, especially because some of those like more neon shades it has, again, has that very gritty, powdery texture. So they're not super smooth, which again can lead to fallout, which is not the best. I think, in fact, for a fallout, like from a fallout perspective, the Juvia's Place one is best, because I've never really experienced any fallout with that, even with these very intense shades, even though they can be a bit harder to work with. But a little goes a long way, and I feel that that really works with the Juvia's Place. Dose of Colors, again, very soft formula, especially that black. It's quite intense, and it can lead to fallout. Like, that's another like palette you need to be pretty careful with. So for me, the Juvia's Place here deserves the point. And finally, round number 12 is the longevity. So I think that the Modern Renaissance does last all day. It's got some really good long-lasting powder power. If you put this on, it doesn't really fade. It doesn't really look any different. I find it doesn't crease very much either. So I think in terms of like wearability, and I especially think the ABH shadows have a good quality to have this more lived-in look, and they still look nice, if that makes sense. With the Lime Crime, this can get a little bit messy. I feel that especially the shimmers in the Lime Crime tend to look a little bit more dull over like in the course of a day. So I don't think the Lime Crime here is the best for longevity. The Juvia's Place looks really nice, very pigmented. I feel that these are a little bit more creasy because these shimmers do have a more creamy texture. So I feel that in terms of like from a creasing standpoint, that these can be a bit more problematic, but that's probably why they don't have the fallout. that makes sense. And then last but not least, the dose of colors, like I said, really nice quality. This has some good longevity throughout the day, but I feel that these just need a little bit of extra grip for them to not fade and go all over the place. That's why I always like to use this with a cream shadow underneath it to really make sure they look intense and vibrant all day, and that it doesn't look like this like version after like 4 hours of wear, if you know what I mean. So for me, I think in terms of longevity, the ABH, the red corner, gets the point. So that means that if my calculations were right, the red corner now has 2 points, the green corner has 3 points, the Juvia's Place yellow corner has 4 points, and the blue corner has 3 points, which is why I said this was a surprise to me, because if you were to ask me, like right off the bat, this is the one I would keep. Out of these three, like if I had to pick just one, I would keep this, not this, because it only has that one shade that I find really pretty on myself. But that's why I like using these, like doing this kind of video where I go over metrics, so it's a little bit more of an objective. Of course, I still give the points based on my subjective opinion, but it feels a bit more objective to really look at these like rounds and like pulling it apart and seeing, okay, so what does an eyeshadow palette actually need to do? I haven't had a round in this series yet where one palette takes all the points. That would be cool if that could happen at some point in time. But yeah, I'm just a little bit surprised that this did so well. And I think that has to do mainly as well with the fact that this has so many grams for the price point. I mean, for just what, $15, even if you were to pay full price of this, it's still the most affordable option I'm showing you here today. You get a ton of product, and those are categories that this palette then wins in very easily, even though I don't love this color story and I don't think the formula is the utmost. So it really depends on what you find important, which of these you want to go for. I think this is a good palette, but it wouldn't be my pick out of these 4 berry palettes to stay around, because I really appreciate like versatility and being able to do lots of different looks with it. And with that one, I just do one look and that's it. But with this, I can do everything, and it comes close. So, you know, if this were perhaps more affordable, if it were like a little bit better even, like it still is 1.6 grams of product, so it's nowhere near the ABH. So I still think this is a good like bang for your buck, because you do get a lot of shades, but that's again a reason why I'm like, oh, it's a little bit too big for my liking as well. So none of these here are perfect, and I just thought it was an interesting outcome to see that the Juvia's Place actually won here. But okay, that's just the way it is. Let me know in a comment down below what your points came to. I would love to know what your winner is. Of course, I will be back with this series again next month, but in the meantime, I'm doing lots of other videos as well. Still in February, we still have a lot of palette videos coming up towards the tail end, because I always have to squeeze all my palette videos towards the end, especially because I was doing so many other videos at the start of the month. So yeah, you have a lot of palette content coming your way. I'm doing declutters in March. So if you want to join the party, then just hopefully I hope you would like to stay tuned for all of that goodness, and then I hope to see you in my next video. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.